And guys, in this next news story, a Bollywood film actor impersonator was lured to a house in Nottingham, savagely battered, repeatedly bound, gagged, tortured, and had a gun held to his head during a terrifying kidnap which saw his father threatened with a £300,000 ransom demand. In sinister calls, the victim's dad was told his son's fingers would be cut off and sent to his family if he failed to raise and hand over the vast sum of cash the kidnap gang demanded. During the 32 hours, the hostage was held at addresses in Wallerton and Top Valley, and he also had petrol poured over his face and a knife placed in his mouth, leading him to genuinely feel he would be killed. In a victim impact statement, he told how the individuals who carried out this destroyed his life in every aspect. During a day-long sentencing hearing at Nottingham Crown Court, Friday the 3rd of May, the gang, Darshan Rathore, his son Sirvan Rathore, Inderpal Singh, Nerva Singh, Jamie Raggett, and Khalsa Singh were jailed for a combined total of almost 80 years. Sentencing the conspirators, the Judge Michael Orty KC said, "It is beyond any sensible and rational doubt that you, Darshan Rathore, was the mastermind behind this truly wicked and audacious scheme, the sole purpose of which you was to extort as much money as you could. He believed he was going to be shot, strangled, or stabbed to death, or even burnt, and this was torture for the pleasure of torture. Those blackmail threats were terrifying. There was coldness, a sadistic nature, and cruelty almost beyond measure. Gaffer tape was used to virtually embalm him, leaving him just enough to breathe, and he was told if he did not cooperate, this would be his last day on earth. That he was not left with life-altering or fatal injuries is only down to chance. He felt what he thought, and what he was assured was the barrel of a gun pressed against him. He thought he was going to die. He was degraded and humiliated entirely needlessly, and he was undoubtedly violently tortured." So the prosecutor said the victim was lured to the address in Nottinghamshire on February the 15th, 2022 to discuss the possibility of him performing in his side role as an impersonator. He said as soon as he walked through the door, he was taken into the kitchen. Masked men attacked him, gagged him and bound him and drove him to a place called the Little Carpet Company and then to an address in Top Valley, which were both linked to Nerva Singh. The prosecutor said that once there, calls were made to his father, firstly demanding £250,000 and then they upped it to £300,000. The prosecutor said this case involves a clear plot to kidnap the victim. It was brutal, it was terrifying for him and his family, and an attempt was made to blackmail his father into handing out a substantial amount of money for the safe return of his son. He said all these defendants took part in planning and executing this serious and sustained criminal enterprise. Darshan Rathore was without doubt the prime orchestrator through pure greed and wickedness, and recruited others to assist him in his plan to exact a huge amount of fear and strike terror in his victims. The prosecutor said for hours the terrified victim was being held at the Top Valley address, and he had his head, feet and face bound with tape and was not allowed to use the toilet, meaning he actually wet and soiled himself. He said all of this period was grueling and degrading. At one point he felt liquid being poured over his face, which by the smell he thought was petrol, and this compounded his terror. He genuinely felt he was about to die. He had a phone held to his mouth, and his father was called and was instructed that all he was to say was, "Dad, please give them what they want." And if he said anything else, he would be killed. He was told his fingers would be chopped off and sent to his family. The prosecutor said his family rallied around and were able to raise £90,000, but by now the police had become involved and Darshan Rathore had been implicated. She said 32 hours into the kidnap and blackmail plot was aborted, and the victim was driven from Top Valley and dumped in some bushes, just wearing his socks and underwear. He managed to get himself to a cousin's house nearby, and a woman inside that address called 999. Themselves in terror, not even recognising the victim. They didn't know who he was. The prosecutor said the police investigation was launched, and through painstaking work, detectives identified who was in the gang and involved, and they were arrested, interviewed and later charged. In his victim impact statement, the man whose identity is protected said the whole incident has completely shattered me and I struggled to come to terms with it. Every single day I was totally humiliated and I thought I was going to die. Darshan Rathore pleaded guilty to conspiracy to kidnap and conspiracy to blackmail, and he was sent to prison for 16 years. His defence said there is no evidence he was involved in any physical violence. He does not blame anyone else for his behaviour. Sirvan Rathore, who is 30, he was also pleaded guilty to conspiracy to kidnap and conspiracy to blackmail. He was jailed for 13 years, and his defence said, How does a well-educated man get himself involved in serious criminality of this nature? Misguided family loyalty. He was working at the HMRC, having graduated from uni as a wife and two twin daughters, and he was not a conspiracy, he was a mastermind of, and he never expected the violence to escalate to the level it did. Indapal Singh, who's 34, who's the nephew of Darshan Rathore, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to kidnap and conspiracy to blackmail, and he's put behind for 14 years. His defence said had a young son who's 6 years old, who has a close connection with him. That close connection has largely been lost as a result of his own actions. Jamie Raggett is 20, who was recruited by one of the guys, and he got prison 12 years, and his solicitor said, how does an 18-year-old man at that time, with a tragic upbringing, who knows nobody in Nottingham, and has never been north of Watford, find himself in court facing these serious criminal charges? He allowed his personal mobile phone to be used on 18 occasions. It connected 14 times, and he overheard what was said, which were the blackmail threats. Nerva Singh, who's 56 years old, he was jailed for 6 years, and his defence said his role was to provide premises, and that represents the extent of his informants. He acted under direction at the time and was drinking heavily and unwell. He drinks alcohol. He drinks loads of alcohol every single day, and the future for him is bleak. And Khalsa Singh, who is also known as Chris Singh, he was found guilty of conspiracy to kidnap and conspiracy to blackmail, and he's put behind for 18 years. And his barrister said, for all the wrong reasons, he's turned his family upside down. So, out of the jail terms, Judge Orty handed each of the defendants lifetime restraining orders not to contact the victim. And guys, in this next news story, a member of a gang which snatched a wealthy Chinese businessman from a golf course as he prepared to tee off and then held him ransom in a dog cage has been jailed for 12 years. Tianfu Guo had claimed he was simply a tourist in the UK and played no part in the 30-hour ordeal of the victim who was grabbed by 4 well-dressed men claiming to be the Chinese police. Guo, who's 37, was convicted by a jury early this month of conspiracy to kidnap on or before the 24th of October last year and conspiracy to blackmail. The married father of one who had previously worked as a fruit wholesaler and a recruitment agent was cleared of possessing an imitation firearm with intent to cause fear of violence. Sentencing Guo, the judge said that he had been central to the professional plan and executed kidnap and blackmail. The court heard how the victim was playing golf with his PA and 2 other women in Hertfordshire when 5 Chinese men jumped out of a car and rushed at him. At one point, he was hit in the face and he was forced into the back of an Audi Q7 which sped off. He was then taken to a property in Surrey where he was blindfolded and gagged and kept in a cage, a dog cage, while his captors demanded $15 million in Bitcoin as a ransom. Guo, who had parked nearby, received a text message at the time with just the word done. The following day, an hour after Guo's arrest, the victim was released near another golf course in Cobham in Surrey and managed to raise the alarm. The ransom had not been paid, the court was told. So other members of the gang are believed to have escaped, and obviously cops are trying to find them. Check this out. So this gang was actually watching this man for around 3.5 months. They were conducting sophisticated covert operations, and they actually paid £25,000 for the Audi Q7 in which they kidnapped the victim. The prosecutor said at the time, this gang were willing to spend £25,000 and the vehicle was going to be abandoned after the kidnap was complete. This is how much trust they had that they were going to get the $15 million. But my man got no money. They spent 25 grand and he's been locked up. So guys, there's a number of news stories coming out of the streets of the UK. It's your boy GC. Keep it locked, keep it real.